otherwise in this is a guy a lot of Republicans, by the way, want to make their next speaker. That's a separate issue for another day. With me now is a House Judiciary Committee member, Republican Congressman from Ohio, Jim Jordan. Congressman, always good to see you. A number of your colleagues are chomping at the bit to see Mr. Horowitz next week, Christopher Wray, the FBI director, when he comes to talk to folks.
And Mr. Rosenstein, he's going to be in front of us in the next few weeks as well.
This is like an Avengers movie. It gets better and better. So, what do you want to hear first of all out of the Inspector General? Well, a lot of you, this is a straight shooter, came down the middle on all of this. Your thoughts?
Well, I think there's some key questions. Like number one, why is Peter Strzok still employed at the FBI? I mean, all the other major players are gone. Comey's been fired. Deputy Director McCabe fired. Faces a criminal referral, lied 3 times under oath. Jim Baker, former general counsel, is gone. Was demoted before he left the FBI. Lisa Page was demoted. She's left the FBI. Jim Rubicki, Comey's chief of staff, has also left the FBI. Why is Peter Strzok still there in light of what we learned from the IG's report? I think that's an important question for Mr. Wray and Mr. Rosenstein when they come in front of Congress.
But if you got your hands on Strzok himself, and many of your colleagues want to subpoena him to testify, what would you want to hear of him? Of course, he has very disparaging views of then candidate Trump. We know that he was providing a lot of the research and early footwork for Bob Mueller, and since fired.
No, you're right.
But what do you want to hear from him?
He's the key player. He's the central figure throughout this entire narrative. Ran the Clinton investigation, was the lead investigator on the Russia investigation. He's the central character, and I think those sequence of text messages are important. Remember, Peter Strzok opens the Russian investigation on July 31st. 8 days later, we have the text message that we saw in the report. We will stop Trump from being president. 1 week after that, we have the text message, August 15th, which says we need the insurance policy to make sure Trump isn't president. I'd want to walk through that sequence all the way up through September 2nd, where we have another text message from Mr. Strzok where he says, POTUS, President Obama, POTUS wants to know everything we're doing. The operative word there is everything. So I would want to walk through that sequence. You opened it on the 31st, and what happens in the next 4.5 weeks in those text messages, I think, tells a lot. We need to unpack that and get answers from Mr. Strzok when he comes in for his deposition.
Still, there are a lot of Democrats who are seizing on this, sort of saying that there's confusion and that Republicans are divided. You guys seem to be suing each other for documents, whether it's Rod Rosenstein, and now he will go the other way at you to simply push for the same thing. On that, Republicans are eating themselves alive on this. What do you think of that?
Well, let's be clear. Rod Rosenstein isn't giving us the material we're entitled to have as a separate and equal branch of government to do our constitutional duty of oversight. And in addition to not giving us the material,
he has to do his constitutional duty, and that what you're doing gets in the way of that.
Rod Rosenstein's name was never on a ballot. He wasn't elected to anything, but the House of Representatives and the people in the United States Senate were, and we are a separate branch of government entitled to that information. So instead of fighting this all the time and instead of threatening staff members on the Intelligence Committee, why don't you just give us the stuff we're entitled to see so we can figure out and get answers for the American people?
Do you think the president should fire him?
I think Rod Rosenstein is frankly skating on thin ice, and if he doesn't start giving us the information, I think you're going to see more things happen in the House. We filed a resolution last week, Mr. Meadows and I did, that says, sense of the Congress, if you don't give us this information, there's going to be a vote in the United States Congress. I think that will happen sometime soon. I'm hopeful it will. And then there's also contempt. There's also impeachment. But he needs to give us that information and quit threatening. I mean, think about that. The head of the Department of Justice threatening staff members in a separate branch of government, trying to do their jobs, trying to get answers for the American people. And why is it, Neil, why is it the most explosive 50-some thousand text messages between Strzok and Page, and the one we've not seen, the one we didn't see until this report, was the most explosive one? We will stop Trump. Why didn't Rod Rosenstein show us that one earlier when we saw the insurance policy text? We've seen the text with all the bias and animus towards President Trump. Why wasn't we just see this one on 2 days ago when the report comes out? So those are some of the other questions we have for Mr. Rosenstein and Mr. Wray.
Real quickly, the president says this whole thing with the IG report vindicates him. Do you agree?
I think it shows how the bias that existed at the top people. Again, not the rank and file agents who are doing good work, but the top people.
He says it vindicates him and exonerates him. Do you agree with that?
I think it shows that we know there's been no evidence of any coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia. A year of Mr. Mueller's investigation, no evidence. So this report, I think, buttresses what we already know and shows the bias that existed Even the Inspector General says we do have no confidence that Strzok's decision was free from bias. They even say that in their report.
Congressman, thank you very, very much. A Democrat's read on this.